Hey, Rex.
That was good.
So, what do you think, Rex?
That was good. I got a lot of notes and tips and things, and a
hmm
couple questions. First, I want to ask, what part of North Carolina are you in?
I'm near Raleigh, just outside of Raleigh.
Okay, I have my best friend's from there. Um, I used to live in Charlotte for a number of years.
Queen Beautiful City, places. The
Yes.
Queen City. Hmm.
Um, what got you started on this path, like to do this work?
Well, originally, one of my very, very first clients after I started working as a therapist, marriage and family therapist, was a 6-year-old little girl who was brought to me. She was the proverbial rope in her divorced parents, tug of war. And I realized that there were no tools I could give a 6-year-old. And she reminded me a lot of myself when I was growing up, and just that horrible situation that a lot of kids of divorce find themselves in. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to help her, I got to help the parents. And so I keep trying to figure out how to get in earlier and earlier and earlier, because people say, well, do you do premarital work? I said, with anybody who's willing to do it, but most people aren't, because they're in love and they're all about the wedding and they think everything's going to be roses and they have no preparation. So that's how I actually ended up then focusing more specifically on relationships.
And what got you started in psychiatry in the first place?
Uh, I've always been interested in what makes people tick. Neurology, neurobiology was some of my favorite stuff when I was in school. But I've always been fascinated by, why do people do what they do? In fact, I've actually gotten into trouble sometimes because I'll be people watching. It's like, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is the relationship there? And my husband will my husband will go, "You're doing it again." He goes, "What?" People watching. Well, yeah, it's like I'm awake, I'm breathing. Of course, that's what I'm doing. So I'm just always fascinated by it.
You should make it a game with him where you guys make up a conversation. You play the different people that you're watching. I've done that sometimes with my wife. Just making up a story. Oh, I'm going to the store. What are you getting? Oh, cream cheese and bagels. Bring him in
Playful.
on it. So I was going to ask, is as you're doing this work, are you noticing any differences in the generations in the
Yeah.
older generations, the issues that they deal with versus the younger generations and the issues that they're dealing with in their marriages?
Well, part of the problem is we're now on third, maybe even fourth generation divorces. So a lot of kids don't even know what a good relationship looks like. They don't trust them. I have a niece who's 36, I think, and she has no interest in being married because her parents, my sister was divorced prior to meeting her, getting together with her father. Her father has now since divorced my sister and his second wife. I mean, and I think people are terrified, because they don't know what works. They still want to be part of a relationship, but no, they don't have to go to relationship school, although I think everybody should. Um, and so they're trying to figure out how to do this. And a lot of the traditional things that sent people towards marriage just don't exist anymore.
Yeah, the cult. There's a cultural shift. I wonder if that's going to come back. It seems like there's kind of a pushback to go the other way right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's always that pendulum swing, and again, like I think I said at the beginning, the women's movement, which I think was necessary for a lot of different reasons, kind of swung the pendulum really far one way, and now we've got whatever you want to call them, the incel males, the guys who don't know how to interact with people. I mean, quite frankly, the younger generation doesn't know how to interact with people anyway, because they're all on their phones, and it's like, okay, please do not try to have this conversation over text. No.
Yeah, right,
but
right.
but they
True.
don't know how to interact with people, and that's just
Mhm.
making it worse. I truly don't know where it's going. It does concern me because people are still having babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you said, I like when you said marriage is our best chance at growing up, our last best chance. I really, really like that because
I agree. Yep.
Yeah, as a getting married, I'm like, it grows you up, and then having kids grows you up more, and it really makes you understand responsibility, accountability, and just learning to get along with somebody else and building a relationship with them. That is I sadly, like you're saying, I was just seeing like kind of get lost recently. Are there any communication skills that you recommend besides some of the ones you've talked about? How can I let my wife know that I'm right? Gently, and that is edifying to her.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so two of my all-time favorite words and my all-time favorite approaches when I'm talking with somebody are curiosity and confusion. I'm curious. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to talk about their own thoughts and feelings, right? Or I'm confused. I followed the discussion to here, and then I think I got lost somewhere. Can we go back? Or what I heard was this. Did I hear that right? So when we can open up that way, and then again by modeling it, somebody else will go, well. So tell me more about what you think. And it's really about managing, and here's a big thing, which I didn't mention, managing our own emotions. Because when we feel attacked, our primal brain is going to take over, and we don't know that we're not being chased by a lion. We just know that our wife is upset with us because we, didn't load the dishwasher. It's like, no, I'm not really going to die about this, but it's really managing our emotions because that's what actually keeps us out of fights.
I really love that you say that because that has been the biggest thing for me in my marriage and just relationships, period, is I remember years ago, I've told the story 100 times, but I came home and I was upset about something. And my wife was like, this is like her first year being married. And she's like, what's wrong? And I went off into the room to be by myself, and I'm thinking, I don't even know because no one's ever asked me that before.
Yeah, wow.
And just starting to learn to pay attention over time. Okay, what am I feeling? I'm feeling sad or anxious or angry. Okay, why? What happened? And then tracing it back, and then really learning to handle that. I feel like I don't know if that's a skill a lot of people have.
It's not, because it's, a lot of people will give themselves permission that, oh, that's just my personality. And I was having this conversation earlier. I have a hot, fast temper. And but I used to explode with regularity. And my husband said to me one day when I was calm, he goes, when you get upset, could you please not take a flamethrower into everything in your path? And because he waited and I wasn't upset at the time and he phrased it that way, it's like, okay. And then my son told me about this dream that he had where I was mad at him for something and I was yelling at him and he went to leave the room and apparently my head popped off and rolled after him whilst I was still yelling. And I thought, I really don't want him to think about me that way.
Yeah.
So then I started to learn how to manage my own emotions. It's not that I don't have them. It's just I've learned not to just let loose with them. And that's, so it's not about not getting upset. It's about what do I do when I am upset? Am I doing something productive or am I doing something harmful?
That is a great example of development, right? Part of us growing up. That was it's very vulnerable and yet very real example. Thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing that because I can totally empathize with
Yep.
And how wise of your husband to wait until you were.
Yes, I have a very wise husband.
Well, yeah, the one thing that never works on somebody who's upset is saying, calm down.
Oh, gosh. Isn't that the truth?
Let's pour gasoline on that fire.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. I did want to end with this one thing, because you when you were talking about marriage making you a better person, and the culture and people just kind of being narcissistically obsessed with being happy, and that's what they kind of think everything is Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock on Star Trek, had this great quote that said, "A life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved, except in memory." And I think that's so important, that, like, yeah, it's not, happiness is like the cookie. Is you put all this work into something, and then you get a little moment and you enjoy it, and then you keep going. Not, I have to be happy constantly.
Well, you can't be, because then it just resets the thermostat. I mean, it's like, then it just becomes my normal, and then I want more and more and more. And, and again, happiness studies show that we're actually happier when we're doing things for other people long term.
Yeah.
And
comfort and happiness can be a vice.
Yeah. And I think it's an unrealistic goal, and expecting somebody else to make me happy is even more unrealistic, because I can choose. What do I want to pay attention to? Do I want to pay attention to the thing that bothered me, or do I want to pay attention? I mean, and this is how we get into the negative spiral, is that, well, my partner did this, so they don't deserve me to be nice to them. And then, and then we just get into this whole thing, as opposed to, you know what? Random acts of kindness. I'm just going to be nice because that's how I want to be.
Yeah. Like Dave says a lot, be grateful. You're only going to be as happy as you are grateful.
Yeah.
And I try to remember that every day. And it eludes me many times. But
that's why I think practice, the gratitude practice is, writing down gratitudes, saying gratitude, you actually verbalizing to somebody else, thank you so much for doing that. I so appreciate it. It's sprinkling fairy dust all over everything.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, thank you so much for being on the show with us today and sharing all these great things.
Yeah.
And,
thanks, Leslie.
We'll hope to have you on again. I'm going to cut it right here.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.